Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the Thoughtful Movement and Fitness Podcast with myself, Clayton Taylor, where we talk about all things fitness and psychology related, especially where those disciplines intersect. Today we'll be talking about exercise consistency and the value that comes with that. We've got 2 really great articles, the first one from Mayo Clinic, the second one from Psychology Today, both talking about exactly that, about what benefits come from exercising consistently and regularly. To give a little context for myself and for my clients, I emphasize this point. There's a few things that we talk about that are vital in a few words. They're fundamentals, consistency, intensity, and adaptability. And in my opinion, their level of importance is in that order. We need to know our fundamentals so that we can exercise safely and effectively. We need to understand the value of exercising consistently, and how that value supersedes even the next 2, which are exercising with intensity, which gets us a lot of the physiological results that folks come into training seeking. And finally, adaptability, which can't be understated either, because it is the concept that allows us to adjust and continue to train even when life's us. So when things come from life that we can't control, that adaptability is key, but not quite so vital to discuss and understand as the value of exercise consistency. So we're going to get right into these articles here. The first one from Mayo Clinic is titled Exercise, 7 Benefits of Regular Physical Exercise. The subtitle here is, you know exercise is good for you, but do you know how good? From boosting your mood to improving your sex life, find out how exercise can improve your life. We're going to go ahead and just get right into it, see what they're talking about here. The first bullet point they have here is exercise controls weight. That one should be kind of a given. That's something that most of us understand. What we don't talk about enough is the fact that exercise without a regular schedule, without regular consistency, has a huge drop-off in the value that it adds to our lives. Now, does that mean we shouldn't do it if we're not exercising consistently? Absolutely not. Any exercise is great. Keep rocking it. That said, when we talk about getting physiological and mental health benefits from that exercise, there is a bit of a disconnect between how we approach it from a day-to-day versus how we kind of feel like, oh, if I'm going to go really intense, I'm going to go really hard and then potentially not exercise again for another week, which, again, it's great. If you exercise really intensely once a week, rock it. Do what works for you. But if you're looking to get some of these benefits, like some of the mental health benefits, like clear mind on the regular, whether it's physiological benefits like weight loss or muscle gain, consistency is vital to getting those results. So just again, to go through this Mayo Clinic article, we're going to kind of move through it pretty quickly because I'm going to let you guys find it at home. We'll put the reference information on the video, both in the comments and should be right here. You should be seeing it right now. So first one is exercise controls weight. Second one is exercise combats health conditions and diseases. And they list for exercises that they combat as stroke, metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, depression, anxiety, many types of cancer, arthritis, and falls. We'll get more into that as we go along, but it speaks for itself, especially coming from Mayo Clinic. Exercise improves mood, which is number 3. It says, need an emotional lift or need to de-stress after a stressful day? A gym session or a brisk walk might help. That's it, guys. You want to feel a little bit better? Exercise, not just exercising after something is stressful, but getting in the habit of doing it regularly gives us the tools and ability to regularly access those benefits, like improved mood. Exercise boosts energy is number 4 here. A lot of times folks don't want to work out because they're so exhausted from their day-to-day. That's completely understandable. However, it's a little bit ironic because the reality is that if we choose to exercise with the appropriate intensity, which we'll talk about in later podcasts, if we choose to exercise with appropriate intensity, exercise becomes a phenomenon, a piece that adds to our energy throughout our day, and also removes energy from the places that we don't want it, like when we go to sleep. So if you want to have more energy during the day and you want to sleep better at night, exercise, especially consistent exercise, is vital to is vital to getting that in the day-to-day. Obviously, if you only exercise once a week, you're going to have, you might have a couple days benefit from that, 1 or 2, maybe even 3, depending on what your body's conditioned for. But exercising daily or semi-daily can get us those benefits on the regular, meaning that we're going to be more awake during the day, have more energy to accomplish the things we need to accomplish, as well as have less energy when we want to have less energy, like when we're trying to go to sleep. Which leads us to number 5 with a Mayo Clinic article, which is exercise promotes better sleep. They go into the whole thing, struggling to snooze, regular exercise, blah, blah, blah. You guys get it, right? I mean, if we want to exercise or if we want to sleep better and we want to have more energy to do things, consistent exercise is the key. Number 6, exercise puts the spark back into your sex life. I'm not going to get too much into this one because it's not what I talk about as a trainer, and it's not what I talk about as a trainer who focuses on mental health and the benefits that come with that. But it's generally accepted that healthy sex lives are an important part of creating a well-rounded individual. For those of us, not everybody desires a robust sex life, but finding the right consistency, even with the sex, finding the right consistency and amount is important to finding an overall balance and high quality of life, especially for those of us who are a little more sex driven. So if you're interested in putting a little spark back in your sex life, exercise goes a long way towards doing that, especially when we do that exercise on the regular and create conditioning over time. I'll let you guys fill in the blanks. Exercise can be fun and social. This is number 7. This is one of my favorites. Too often we consider exercise to be a solo effort that is all about how am I going to get up? How am I going to exercise? How am I going to do my thing? For those of us who exercise in gyms, we get up and we start to see the same people over and over again, especially if you go around the same time every day. You start to make connections, you start to make friends, you start to interact with people. That has a value. Even for those of us who exercise by themselves primarily, as I do, and I know there's lots of others of you out there who like to do it kind of on your own, it creates opportunities for us to interface with others and discuss these topics and learn together. And, you don't have to be a super social person to get the benefits of the social aspect of exercise. Even just joining a community like this Instagram community, there's Facebook groups, lots of Redditors, there's lots of places on the internet to find others who have a similar interest in the type of exercise that you are doing. And the bottom line on exercise, according to this Mayo Clinic article, says, exercise and physical activities are great ways to feel better, boost your health, and have fun. For most healthy adults, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services recommends these exercise guidelines. They say aerobic activity. I'm going to say endurance activity, just to be a little more specific with the wording. Get at least 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity or 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity a week, or a combination of moderate and vigorous activity. The guidelines suggest that you spread out this exercise during the course of a week to provide even greater health benefits and to assist with weight loss or maintaining weight loss. At least 300 minutes a week is recommended, but even small amounts of physical activity are helpful. Being active for short periods of time throughout the day can add up to provide health benefits. So they kind of jump around in terms of how they're addressing consistency in that paragraph, but they get the job done of saying, even small amounts of physical activity, and I'm gonna change that to say especially small amounts of physical activity, even at moderate and low intensity levels, they add up over time. So as far as consistency and building consistency goes, the value here is real clear. We get all those things that we just talked about by doing exercise, and we get more of it by doing it more often, right? So the idea with traditional fitness of being, you have to exercise super hard all the time, while that absolutely has validity and its benefits, can sometimes get in the way of consistency. Chiefly because if we work really hard, if we do slobber knockers every workout, we're not likely to want to get up and do it again the next day, especially if we're so sore that we don't want to even move our bodies, right? So while, again, there's absolutely benefit to going hard, for those of us who are learning to get regular exercise in our lives, lowering the intensity to smaller amounts and smaller levels of, I don't want to say effort because it's always going to take effort, but lower intensity can help us collect moments where we feel good from the exercise, and then we begin to create an association between that movement and the benefits that come with it, like the endorphin release, the better regulation of neurotransmitters and hormones, all those things. We start to create that association between the behaviors and the consequences. So, in my opinion, it makes more sense to hold off on the intensity for a while we're building the consistency and creating that association in our minds, so that it's not something we have to get up and do. Rather, it's something we get to do because it's going to make us feel a little bit better. Now, if you work out really hard, so hard that you're wanting to throw up every time you work out, you're not going to have that association. You're going to have an association with exercise where, okay, every time I work out, I want to throw up. That's not what we want. This next part of the article on Mayo Clinic is strength training. They say, do strength training exercises for all major muscle groups at least 2 times a week. Aim to do a single set of each exercise using a weight or resistance level heavy enough to tire your muscles after about 12 to 15 repetitions. Really great way of summing it up all at once. I would say, for my purposes, that there's a little more you've got a little more wiggle room in terms of what they say here. In my opinion, we should all be strength training at least 3 times a week, maybe even more. And let me be clear, I'm not saying we should be, like if you were just listening a second ago, we shouldn't be doing slobber knockers. We shouldn't be doing ass kicker workouts more than 3 times a week. But we should be doing movement more than 3 times a week. And we should be doing intentional and results-driven movement more than 3 times a week. And for me, resistance training or strength training is a really important really important exercise, is a really important subject. To me, the strength training gives us a lot of opportunity because not everybody always wants to get outside and go for a run or, start moving really, really hard or do burpees or whatever, although burpees is actually great. Okay, wait, we're going to start over. Strength training gives us the ability to get some of this consistency without leaving our homes. So for those of us who have the ability to get some adjustable dumbbells and a bench in our home, that means that we can lift as much as we want, as often as we want, without even leaving the safety and the comfort of our homes. Same thing, if you're going to the gym, you can still get to the gym twice a day or once a day or once every other day. But that regular strength training, especially approached with a intentional and results-driven attitude, creates a consistent release of dopamine, consistent release of endorphins that get us all the benefits that we were just talking about. sleeping better at night, having more energy during the day, feeling more effective, generally speaking. As far as all those benefits go, for me, I want my clients to be getting those as often as possible and to whatever degree is most helpful for them on the day-to-day basis. So if you're like me and you use or want to use exercise to help your mental health or your mood or your overall well-being, again, you can't really be doing these things regularly and consistently. And if you want to do them regularly and consistently, it's important unless you're an advanced, hypertrophy training, unless you're an advanced trainee, unless you're training with specificity and for a very specific goal where high intensity is vital, like bodybuilding or, performance sports, whatever it is. Unless you're doing that, the value of consistency over intensity is massive, just simply because we can get those things that we talk about on the regular without feeling like we need to get up and just kick our own asses in order to do an exercise. All right, so I'm going to go and let you guys find this article. The URL will be in the video here. We're going to move on to this Psychology Today article that's entitled Staying Consistent with Exercise, Achieving Escape Velocity. Staying consistent with exercise is effortful until it's not. So, as you can tell from this title, the title of this article, the purpose of what they're talking about is really about the value of consistency from the standpoint that it helps us habitualize and normalize movement and exercise. The whole idea here behind the article and behind the impetus of the article is that, yeah, it takes a lot of effort to be consistent, absolutely. But once you get in the habit of it, and once you start getting those benefits on the day-to-day, those take over and it shifts in our mind from this thing that we have to get up and make happen to, oh, okay, I can get up and I get to do this because I feel good while doing it. That's my slant on the article. I'll let you guys find it and read it for yourself. But for our purposes, we're going to go and get right into the key points here. The first one says, staying consistent with exercise is challenging until it is incorporated into your identity. Until then, you can stick to your routine by picking exercises you like and by making concrete plans to do them. And the third bullet point here is sticking to your plan, regardless of how much you exercise, is vitally important. So we're gonna break down those key points here. The first one, staying consistent with exercise is challenging until it is incorporated into your identity. The idea behind this being that once exercise consistency and once exercise becomes a regular part of our day-to-day lives, it's no longer a thing that we're trying to do. All of a sudden it becomes a piece of ourselves, a piece of how we want to live our lives. I'll give you an example for myself. Grew up in the business for a long time. I didn't really like to work out, or rather, I felt like I had to in order to enjoy my life, and so I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to do that. At some point, and this was after I completed my psychology degree, I had the realization that when I was being less consistent, I was less happy. When I'm less happy, I'm less likely to do the exercise and things that benefit me and improve my mental health. So the flip side of that is, if we're able to create a situation where I'm exercising or we're exercising for the little moments and for the little bits that help us feel better, all of a sudden it's easier to do the next time you want to get up and do it. The next key point, until then, you can stick to your routine by picking exercises you like and by making concrete plans to do them. This speaks to two really important concepts that I talk about with my clients and that I adhere to myself, or at least that I incorporate myself, which is, first and foremost, let's not do exercises we don't want to do. It sounds really simple and it sounds kind of obvious, but so often because of media and because of social media and because of kind of the state of the industry, we have so many inputs, so many different people saying, do this, do that, do this. This is the best for this is the best for that. Most of the time, all those perspectives have their value. However, if you're not careful, you can ignore the fact that it's ultimately all relative to who you are, what you like, and what you're willing to do. As a trainer, I don't give people exercises that they don't like. Now, there's nuance to that because you want to have a full body, you want to create fitness adaptations in the entire body, and for that you do need to hit your 4 main compound movements at least, which are pushes, pulls, squats, and deadlifts. And so it's hard to eliminate one of those because they're so vital to creating a complete program. However, by making them less challenging or more enjoyable at the beginning, we create a situation where we lower the entry level for the benefits, and we increase the potential value by creating a situation where maybe the person's going to be more likely to continue to do this exercise over time. So that's a bunch of words to say. You should be focusing on exercises that you enjoy with the framework of a complete full body exercise, especially when we're talking about resistance, full body program. But we don't want to do a bunch of movement and a bunch of exercises that we don't want to do. As an example, I don't like burpees, so I don't do them. If you don't like doing burpees, don't do them. There you go. Okay. While it requires an educational and experiential component to substitute in exercises that fill the space and the void that not doing a certain exercise might create, it doesn't make much sense to try to force ourselves through behaviors that we don't like doing. For the simple fact that we're not going to want to keep doing them if we continue to try to do them in a way that we don't like them. That said, there is a lot of value to learning how to do exercises correctly with appropriate intensity in order to reframe how we feel about that exercise, especially when we're talking about one of these core 4 muscle movements. Again, that's pushes, pulls, squats, and deadlifts. The second part of this key point is they say picking exercises and making concrete plans to do them. That speaks to the third key point here, again, which is sticking to your plan regardless of how much you exercise is vitally important. Again, this is something that I talk about with clients and talk about for myself as well. We call it unrelenting prioritization. The idea basically being that no matter what we have to do, we are going to get into the space. We're going to go to the place where we can get some movement. For some of us, that's getting to the gym. Some of us, that's making sure that we get movement within our own homes, with our own equipment. However it happens, making the plan to follow through relentlessly on your commitment to do these movements, to do these exercises, and over time create the fitness adaptations that you want, like more muscle and less body fat or better mental health, is absolutely vital. And to that end, it's important to me as a provider to emphasize the point that, again, as important as intensity is to gaining certain physiological results, it's not as important as creating the consistency that allows us to get them to the consistency that allows us to create movement over time. Okay, so sticking to your plan regardless of how much you exercise is vitally important. This speaks to one of the most important concepts that we talk about, which is unrelenting prioritization. When we make sure that we get to our movement, when we get to the gym, we create a situation where over time we end up getting more instances of movement and exercise and endorphin release and dopamine release that helps reinforce this idea that we want to get into the gym, we want to do some movement. And over time, that leads to us exercising more often, even if that is at a lower intensity point. Now, as we've talked about, intensity is important. And so at a certain point, we definitely want to add intensity into that program. However, creating that day-to-day consistency still outweighs that intensity, because intensity can build on consistency, whereas it's a lot harder to build consistency into intensity because, for the simple reason that if you're working out really hard, it's not as easy to want to come back and do more of that because it's a challenge. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys find this article and find it for yourself, and I would encourage you all to read it. It's got some really great stuff, but we're going to hit the bullet points here. Those were the key points, but we're going to hit the main titles here in the article. The first piece here is the steps to maintain an exercise habit. Their step 1 is find what works for you. This is really vital to understanding how to move forward, especially in all the noise that is IG and our fitness communities, and both online and around the world. Everybody's stoked about what they do, and in their experience, this is what you should do. This is what you should do. Well, what you should do are the things that you want to do. And we've talked about the reasons why. That's pretty straight up. If we want to do it, we're going to do it more often. So the questions you want to ask is, do I enjoy it? Does it fit in with everything else in my life? The example they have is, if you thought joining a boxing class would be incredible, but the closest class was 45 minutes away, it might not fit. One of the biggest derailers of good intentions is competing goals. Make sure what you pick can be prioritized. So this goes back to the same thing we've been talking about here. In my opinion, getting more exercise, even at a lower intensity, is more important towards long-term adherence and gleaning of results than is intensity. While intensity is absolutely important and vital towards getting some of these physiological benefits that people are interested in getting, we're less likely to get them if we're not exercising with consistency. Step 2, focus on becoming. Many people start exercising for some separate outcome. Most often, that separate outcome is to lose weight. While exercising may help, it is not directly tied to that outcome. Rather, a better idea would be to focus on the daily process of getting more activity. Make exercising more the goal in and of itself. If you can get to the point where you can say, I am an exerciser, then this behavior has been integrated into your identity. You're another step closer to escape velocity. I'm going to finagle that a little bit to say that it's important to focus not just on the long-term results and benefits that we're looking for, but rather to focus on the short-term results that come from movement and exercise, like being able to sleep better, having more energy during the day, having more peace of mind and mental clarity, and feeling better in the day-to-day. When we focus on those results, we're more likely to come back and do the activity more often. When we come back and do the activity more often, we're more likely to get the results that we're looking for, those long-term results, such as reducing body fat, increasing muscle mass. Again, intensity is absolutely an important part of that, but not as important as doing it regularly. Step 3, making it a consistent routine. We've talked about this. We're going to go ahead and read what they say. The only way to integrate exercise into your identity is to actually do it. Sounds obvious, but despite their best intentions, many people fail to follow through on their goals. Each morning, create a plan for what you will do and when you will do it. Treat your exercise habit like an appointment. Maybe in the morning, you block out 30 minutes to walk with a dog. After work, you may take 30 minutes to go to the gym, or before work, you go for a 15-minute jog. Regardless of the magnitude, i.e. 20 minutes of lifting versus 60 minutes, make sure you do it. Going for a 10-minute run, even if it seems minimal, ingrains the good habit. Skipping your routine makes it easier to skip the next time and the next time, making achieving escape velocity challenging. Okay, they keep talking about escape velocity. That's not what we're focusing on in this podcast. What we're really focusing in on is this concept that they're talking about, where they say going for a 10-minute run, even if it seems minimal, ingrains the good habit. Over time, if we're focusing on ingraining that good habit, we're going to naturally collect more consistency, because the results coming from that, like the better mental clarity, the feeling better, the better sleep, the more energy during the day, we notice those benefits and we want more of them. So by focusing on getting more of those immediate results, we are also ultimately working towards getting more of those longer term results, such as the muscle gain and weight loss and body fat loss. They finish the article by saying exercising more is a common goal that people hold, but it can be challenging to stay consistent. If you have setbacks, stay compassionate towards yourself and try to follow the steps in this post. If you can find a form of exercise that you enjoy, if you can focus on exercise as the outcome itself, and if you make plans and stick to them regardless of the magnitude of exercise, staying consistent won't feel so effortful. You will have achieved your escape velocity because exercise will be part of who you are. Again, he keeps talking about exercise velocity, but the whole point here is what he says in the sentence before, which is if you make plans and stick to them regardless. Sorry, let me rewind a little bit. If you can find a form of exercise that you enjoy, if you can focus on exercise as the outcome itself, and if you make plans and stick to them regardless of the magnitude of exercise, staying consistent won't be so effortful. Our whole goal here is to make it easier to create the benefits of exercise more regularly and more consistently. So as these podcasts often are, I end up repeating a certain amount of things. If you're listening, you would no doubt have noticed that, and some of you might be like, oh, why does he repeat these things so often? The things that I'm repeating, like any lecture, are the things that are the most vital and important to the test, right? And there's no written test for you guys here, but when we talk about getting results, when we talk about losing body fat and gaining muscle and gaining peace of mind and getting better sleep and more energy during the day, it all comes back to this idea of exercising regularly. While it's absolutely important that we exercise with intensity as well, it's much easier to build exercise consistency into your life by focusing on the immediate benefits like the mental clarity, better sleep, all that good stuff that we've already talked about, and making sure that we get those benefits on the day-to-day. Now, when we focus on getting those mental benefits, those mental clarity and all of that, and the endorphin release and everything, well, all of a sudden we start collecting more instances of feeling good throughout our day-to-day. If we can associate exercise with feeling good in our day-to-day, we are going to naturally want to do it more often. If we naturally want to do it more often, we are going to get out and do it more often. When we get out and do it more often, those traditional results, like changing our body composition, become much more achievable. Now, there's a whole other aspect of this, like when we start talking about nutrition consistency, but that's another podcast, that's another day. For today, the takeaway is, if you're struggling, first of all, if you're struggling to find results and you're looking for a way to combat that, learning to incorporate a regular routine is absolutely vital. When we're talking about incorporating a regular routine, in this trainer's opinion, it's super important to make sure that the intensity is right-sized, meaning we're not getting up and saying, okay, I've got to do a slobber knocker every single time that I go and work out. I don't want to end every workout drenched in sweat, miserable, nauseated, and then the next day I'm so sore that I don't want to walk the dog. No. Instead, we prioritize the lower intensity movements for the sake of doing them more often and gleaning those immediate usually mental benefits like mental clarity and just feeling better, and parlaying that into a program that also incorporates intensity and adaptability. Together, with those concepts, we can create a program that is not just rock solid, but you know that you can rely upon to bring about the results that you're looking for, whether they are those mental clarity, better sleep, or more energy, or if they are gaining muscle and losing body fat and being more flexible, whatever it may be, performing more readily, whatever it may be. Goes back to the sex thing. Anyways, guys, it's been a pleasure. We're going to talk about next week the concept of incorporating intensity and how the best way to approach that is. For the meantime, though, get out there and keep that intensity nice and right-sized, and execute in a way that allows us to feel good more often. Because when we feel good more often, we're going to perform these behaviors, these exercises with more consistency. When we perform these exercises and movements with more consistency, we get more of those classic benefits that we talk about, like weight loss, muscle gain, all those kind of classic ideas that we talk about. But also, here's the other thing. If we're exercising consistently and regularly to feel good, it also makes the benefits of more muscle and less body fat less viscerally important, because a lot of times we're seeking that muscle gain and body fat loss so that we feel good about the way our body looks. Well, if we can put ourselves in a position to feel good regardless of what our body looks like, it almost doesn't matter what our body looks like, because we're feeling good on the regular, on the day-to-day. There's a lot of reasons why that's super important, especially, considering that people have an inaccurate idea of what healthy looks like. People think, a super lean six-pack is the height of health, when it's really not. And we'll talk about that, why that is in later podcasts. The bottom line is, if we focus on feeling good more consistently over time, we're gonna feel good more consistently over time. Thanks for hanging out, you guys.